official Bible was one that had been translated into yet another language, a language that most people couldn't even read, Latin.
The Roman Catholic Church wanted the Latin Bible to be the Bible, and the idea of putting the Bible into a vernacular language so an average person could read it was strictly forbidden.
The church wanted to keep control over the message of the Bible. And so there was an official translation that was the only one that was to be used, and the priests were the ones that were to do the interpretation and so forth.
Even as late as the 16th century, possession of an unlicensed Bible carried a death sentence. In 1536, English scholar and linguist William Tyndale was executed for the crime of translating the Bible from the Vulgate, or the traditional Latin, into English. But all this changed when the English monarch King Henry VIII became embroiled in a bitter battle with Pope Clement VII over the king's request for an annulment to the king's marriage to Queen Catherine of Aragon. Henry's desire to take on a new wife would eventually lead to a break with Rome and the creation of the Church of England.
As different countries, different kings came to power, they needed the blessing of the Pope at the Vatican to do certain things, like, for instance, get divorced. And when the Pope said no, there were some, like Henry VIII, who said, you know what, I'm going to form my own church. And we're going to have our own clergy and our own hierarchy, and we're going to use the Bible as the foundation of it, and we're going to do our own thing.
In 1539, Henry VIII commissioned the publication of what was then called the Great Bible. Translated into English, it contained much that was nearly identical to the Tyndale translation, minus some of that version's more controversial passages.
And in 1539, Henry brings out, with his picture on the title page, a Bible that has been commissioned by him, and it's called the Great Bible, or the King's Bible. It shows the king in what we think of as the prime real estate place of a title page, top and center. And he is holding out copies of the translated Bible to his statesmen on one side and his churchmen on the other, and they are receiving it, some of them on their knees. So it is definitely a portrait of power. And after him, all monarchs want their own Bible in England.
We know these books have discrepancies in them and contradictions among themselves. They are at odds with one another. They're not disinterested history the way we would think of it today. These authors had a goal in mind. They had an agenda, and they included only those stories that made their point.
There comes a point when you realize that interpretation is 9/10 of the law. But if you believe that the Bible is inerrant, infallible, the verbatim Word of God, that causes a problem. Because now we have to ask, what did God really say?
While the stories of the Bible may have been divinely inspired, it seems that the book we read today has more of man's fingerprints on it